This is Bioshock Infinite, the Prophet of History. In this series, we're going to take a deep dive into the symbolism and historical significance found in the characters, story, and visual elements of this amazing game. And while the story of Bioshock Infinite takes another step back in time compared to its predecessor, I'm going to point out exactly how and why this game comes with a message that is not only relevant to the times in which we live today, but it is also downright prophetic in certain cases, as the lessons of history often are, of course. And it offers also a warning to a potentially very dangerous future that our world is heading in today. And when I say a warning, not so much Bioshock Infinite. I don't think it was structured as kind of a warning, but history in general comes with a certain amount of lessons and warnings about things that could happen in the future. So it's interesting because Bioshock Infinite is very much a historical look at America. It's a snapshot of America in a certain era of time. And it's very interesting to study certain snapshots of history because they actually do tell us quite a bit about the times we live in, and they can be quite prophetic. So what we're going to do with this series is we're going to follow the story in a more or less linear fashion as it's told through the gameplay from start to finish. Unlike other analysis of the game that you may find on YouTube, for example, this series is not just another retelling of the story, nor is it going to be like an explanation of the science or necessarily the philosophy or the religious ideas, which are altogether the supporting elements, largely the supporting elements of the story in Bioshock Infinite. Nor are we going to retread the well-worn path of trying to unravel the time-space continuum associated with the alternate realities of Booker versus Comstock in an attempt to tie everything up in a neat little bow. We will, however, be exploring these elements, of course, albeit differently. I think I'm going to take a much different approach than a lot of previous videos have. Now, instead, we're going to uncover the less obvious underlying statements being made in this game through its story and the visual elements. We will also explore some of the real-life events in our world and in history which directly influenced Bioshock Infinite. And I think that part specifically, you're going to find some very, very interesting influences in that led to what we enjoy as the game Bioshock Infinite. So in order to do this, we will need to address some of the already well-known themes and ideas which serve to inspire Bioshock Infinite, of course, but only so that we can create a point of reference, because I think at this point, just about everyone watching this series may be fairly acquainted with Bioshock, and chances are you probably have already played the game. And if you haven't, stop watching this video, go play the game. It's amazing. Then come back. But the less obvious, so we're going to look at the less obvious and far richer hidden undercurrents that will begin to open up some very interesting things to think about. Because, of course, that's what a lot of my work is about, is picking out the less obvious points and finding kind of those hidden gems in video games. So as many players of this game can attest to, after completing Bioshock Infinite, we are left with a lingering sense that there's far more going on than we can put our finger on. In this series, we will attempt to dive deeper than has been done before in order to identify and explore some of these hidden undercurrents for us to examine and decide for ourselves what any of this means. So let's start inside of the lighthouse. As DeWitt enters the lighthouse, he sees a sign which reads, "Of thy sins shall I wash thee." In a bit of foreshadowing and a reference to baptism, Booker peers into the wash basin where he sees his reflection. Now, you obviously don't have to peer into the wash basin, but it's a very nice touch. The reflection is also meant as a clue in revealing Booker's true identity. The reflection is used several times before DeWitt finds himself inside of the gates of Columbia, in fact, in order to, foreshadowing is a way to unconsciously prepare the audience for the big reveal later on. And of course, it's a very common yet often overlooked method in storytelling. Now, when Booker finds his way to the top of the lighthouse, there is a simple puzzle which has a dual purpose of showing us the three symbols which represent the core virtues of Columbia. Solving this puzzle somehow seems like an acknowledgement or understanding of this tripartite of virtues, preventing entry to those whom are not worthy of this important set of three virtues. We will look at these three virtues in detail a little bit later in the series. And also there's a secret meaning, or maybe an unmeaning, if you like, to this puzzle. And we're going to look at that in greater detail a little bit later on as well. Now, during Booker DeWitt's ascent to Columbia, the player, if you're paying attention, you can see another reflection, as if Booker DeWitt is looking into a mirror. And yet it's another subtle way of preparing the player that Booker DeWitt is going to be seeing himself just about everywhere he looks in Columbia. So this is a little bit foreshadowing that's just telling us that really throughout the entire story, Booker DeWitt's looking at himself in the mirror. Every time he sees Comstock, every time he sees Elizabeth, everywhere he looks, it's a reflection of his own psyche, right? And this happens throughout. Now, after disembarking from the flying capsule, DeWitt sees an image of the prophet, Zachary Comstock, bathed in golden light and leading his followers to Columbia. Now, this image, of course, is another mirror of sorts, and these reflections are going to happen over and over and over again, so much so that I'm not really going to bother pointing them out too much more after this, because they're just so ubiquitous. And of course, all of Columbia is a reflection of Booker DeWitt, and it's being directed back at him. So this is something he has to contend with. I don't think this element has gotten as much attention as it probably should have. Now, there are three chambers in this first area that Booker comes into. There's three main rooms here, which clearly represent, or they're inspired by, of course, the Christian Trinity. The first chamber is that of the Father, or Comstock, his prophecy, of course, displayed over the entryway of the main chamber.